Hey budgeteers, today we are on the topic of cash envelope systems. This is something that a lot of people use because it's a very well-known subject. I've got my awesome envelopes here, but my only question is how is carrying around a whole bunch of cash even safe? So for those of you who are not as familiar with the envelope system, I'm going to go over a brief introduction to how that works right now. So I have here these envelopes. Basically, in the envelope system, what somebody will do is they'll take their paycheck that they're going to receive and they'll put their cash in envelopes. So you would get it out of the bank, or you wouldn't ever put it in a bank. You would just cash your check, and then you would take your envelopes and write things on them like food or gas or whatever else you want on there. And you'll put the amount that you're going to spend during that month into the envelope. There's lots of different ways to do it. Some people will divide it into 2 times that they put money into them in a month, or however they want to do it. There's lots of different ways. The first thing that I want to say is that carrying around cash is probably generally safe. You're likely not going to get mugged and have everything taken from you, although it could happen. However, I'm not someone who likes to carry around cash. In fact, I don't want to have my wife holding all of these envelopes with all of our food budget and everything in it that I need, and have me have to run to the store on the way home from work and not have access to that money. You see, I feel like the cash envelope system is a great concept in theory, and it's supposed to help you to not spend as much because it's a lot harder to access, which that's generally true. But at the same time, you can still access it from anywhere if you do it another way. And I'm going to show you how to do that and keep the mentality of knowing how much you have within those envelopes, which we're going to call buckets today. I've got my budget template here. I'm going to pull that up for us and we'll take a look through it. But you can do this in any template you build. You can make it so that your envelopes are tracked online or digitally through your Excel spreadsheet, or however you want to do it. In my free spreadsheet, which if you don't already have it, you can download it here. You can put buckets together and you can put cash into them, and anyone in the household is able to look and see how much you currently have within that envelope, or bucket as I refer to them. And I'm changing the name from envelope to bucket so that it's not confusing. I thought about calling them digital envelopes, but they're not alike. They're very different. Envelopes, you carry money in. Buckets, you carry digital money in. And so with this system, you'll use a debit card, but you will have limits. You will have caps. And I'm going to talk about how that works out. But again, I don't care whether you do it either way. If envelopes with cash in it works for you, go right ahead. There's plenty of awesome ways to use that system. But I'm going to show you right now how you can put it in digitally, track it on a month-by-month basis in my budget template, or by creating your own, you can do something very similar and track your buckets so that you have that money readily available when you need it. Here we go, budgeteers. Into the budget template, into the coolest aspect, I think, of this entire template. Almost everyone can make a budget on their own that takes their income and their expenses and comes out with an end number, which if you don't know how to do that, I'll be doing a tutorial on that as well. But in this template, the big draw, the thing that's very different, is the bucket accounts, the way that it takes care of your money. So in the envelope system, you would divide your buckets into multiple different names. So in that, just like we did in the very beginning video when we were looking through, you can go to the Start Here tab and you can look and see that there is a section for bucket accounts. And in here, I'll show you how to name all of these accounts later, but there are 20 optional buckets. So you can have them for food or gas or clothing or whatever you want to set up, a holiday budget for the future. And you can continue to put money into those buckets so that you have that money on a later date. And I'm going to show you how that side of it works, because that is exactly what we're talking about. And I want to shift you over from envelopes into your digital bucket system if that's something that you're interested in. I like I said before, if you're not into that, that's fine. But I want to show you a great digital way of keeping track of your money, because I prefer to hold everything on a debit card, which is as good as cash to me. And I'll talk more about that near the end of this video. So going back over to January 2017, and it doesn't matter which month you're currently in. As you go through the template, I'll show you how to get to the right month later on in this series. But we're going to open up the section that says Bucket Account Expenses over here. So let's just say bucket number 1 is the bucket that we're focused on, and I want to put some money into it for January, and we'll say that it's my clothing budget. And typically in my family, we put $75 per month into our clothing budget. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in here, and you'll notice that This line is a budgeted amount. So I budgeted $75 and my actual amount is $75. So what this does is it will automatically take that amount out of your paycheck so that when you come down to your monthly summary, you see that you do not have that $75. So if I made $75 this month and instantly put it into bucket number one, this number will show as a 0 because it will say you've already used that money. However, you haven't used that money. It's actually waiting for you in your bucket account, just like how it would sit there and wait for you in an envelope, but it's waiting in bucket number one for you to go out and buy clothes. That's where, if you go to the bucket accounts tab, you can see how it's working. So in the bucket accounts tab, you'll see I have bucket number one, which I can change that to clothes, and I'll do that really quick just to make this example more solid. So if I change that to clothes, I go back to January, you'll see now that bucket number one is clothes. And if I go to bucket accounts, you'll see that it's closed. So I've got $75 as my total budget. Then I've got my entire year, January through December, and my current balance is $75. So if you look at January of 2017, it shows my checking account reconciliation should be 0, that I have no money in there. And that's because I haven't received any money yet. I've never been paid inside of this budget template. But basically it's saying I have negative 75, yet my account should be 0 because it's putting that $75 back in as if it's still there in my account, but not there in my budget. It's completely gone. And they call this zero-based budgeting in some systems. For me, I feel like most budgets should be, if not already, based on almost a zero budget, meaning that you tell every dollar what to do beforehand. I don't care what you're telling it to do. Some people will say you should only tell it to go to savings or different things. If you want to go spend it on entertainment or you have a lifestyle that you want to live, that's fine. Just put the money where you're going to put it and call it your zero-based budget and go from there. So we'll continue on the clothes example here. I've got $75 in the total bucket here and $75 at the end. Now you'll notice that if I put more in there, I could put $100 in there instead. So we'll jump back over and we'll change that to 100. Now I've got $100 in there. Now if I create a February of 2017 tab and I put another $100 in there, it's going to turn it into $200. And that $200 will then flow all the way through to my balance. So what you can do is, let's say my wife goes out to Kohl's, which is one of our favorite places to shop for clothes because we can get some awesome deals out there. In fact, I've got a $10 card that I don't even have to spend a dime. I've got to go use it this month, so I'm pretty excited about that. But I've got that here, and I want to go shopping, and I know that I have money in my clothing budget right now. I have $100, in fact. So I go to Kohl's, and I buy a pair of jeans. So I go in, and I put it in January, because that's the month that we're looking at on that tab. I put it for 2017, and today is the 9th of January that I'm recording this, and my amount there will say that I spend $42 above and beyond the $10 they sent me. That means they hooked me. They did a good job. And with that, I'm going to put a manual comment in that says jeans at Kohl's. And the category, I'm going to be able to click this down and find my bucket. And this is all of the list that you see over on the Start Here tab, but I have clothes right here. It's bucket number 1. So I can click on that. Another easy way to do that is I can actually just type it in simply and hit enter. As long as it matches the same way it's spelled, it will be just fine. And that means that when I jump back over to my bucket accounts, I see that $42 has been removed from my bucket. So I started with $100 by putting that in. $42 came out in January, and now I have $58 left in that bucket. So I just bought myself some awesome jeans. I would never spend $42 unless that was at least 3 or 4 pairs, and they were on some sort of clearance deal, but that's just me. But my wife would go out and get some killer deals. She'd probably get 7 pairs of jeans somehow. So let's say that she goes out in February and she buys some more clothes. So we'll put in another line here. And my wife is the best shopper in the whole world. I don't know how she does it, but we get so much stuff when she goes out that is very cheap. So she spends $30 and comes home with 5 outfits for her and 5 outfits for my daughter. And she had already looked at that, knew that there was money inside of the bucket. So she jumps over to the bucket accounts and sees, oh, I have $58 in our family budget. She goes to Kohl's and spends 30 of that. And again, we put it in the clothes budget, but I do have to spell it right. So if I jump back to the bucket accounts, now I see in January I spent 42, and in February my wife spent 30. Now I have a balance of $28 left in there. As you can see, it works exactly the same as the envelope system. You're putting money into it, and then you only have that amount. Now, some people will say, well, if it's all inside of your debit account, then you could just take from bucket number 2 and put it back into your clothes. And that's exactly where I tell you, this is all a mind game. So are envelopes. It's all a mind game. And I'm going to explain that a little bit further, but I wanted to make very clear that this can be done right here in this budget template. And you can do it all through your debit card so that you're actually spending your cash and you've divided it all out as soon as you receive it in your bank. That means you don't have to pull out any money. You don't have to carry it around. You run very little risk of getting robbed because debit cards are a lot more secure when it comes to that. Now, on the flip side of that, I will agree, there is some ease in swiping a card, but I promise you that if you get used to spending cash, it also gets easier and easier, and after a while, it becomes just as easy as swiping a debit card. So don't let that fool you. It's all a mind game, and if you can keep track and you know, I have $28 in my clothing account, and my wife, when she goes out to shop, she also can look and say, we have $28 in our clothing account. We know that we do not cross that line. Now, just really quickly here, I am going to create a February tab, and I'll show you exactly how this works later. So don't worry about the naming conventions or what I'm doing here. But I am going to set this up as February. And now you'll see I've got an extra $100 that I'm putting in clothing for February of 2017. And then if I jump to my bucket accounts, you'll now see my total budget is $200. That $42 and that $30 has already come out, and I have $128 left. So it's just like putting extra money into that bucket. You're filling it up, and you're getting it ready for something big. So I could save that up. Now, one of the main uses of buckets or envelopes that people find is that there are always upcoming events, car repairs, holidays, birthdays, clothing, educational expenses. There's so much that I use for my buckets. In fact, I think in my budget for 2016, I used every bucket, all 20 of these except for one. And I used that as a placeholder for a while, so I guess I technically used it. But there are a lot of things that we need to continue to save up our money for and bank money for on a monthly basis that we need a divider inside of our accounts. And that's exactly what this serves as. Now, again, I'm not telling you need to download this exact template. I do offer this out there. It's absolutely free. But if you do want to make your own budget, I highly recommend building a way to divide out your money and keep it very clear for you so that you can essentially keep your envelopes digitally in buckets. And I hope you'll call them buckets because that's my new terminology for the digital system of keeping your money segregated. That's it for buckets here on the template, and I'm going to jump back to the camera and we'll talk a little bit more about the usefulness of buckets versus the envelope system, and I'll share some opinions there. In absolutely no way am I saying that you shouldn't use the cash envelope system. If you want to carry your money around in an envelope in cash, that's great, if that's what works for you. But feel it in your heart. Know exactly what works best for you. And if you start to notice that you're spending too much cash out of envelopes, try this. If you feel like you're spending too much money because you're using a debit card, try that. I'm open to everything, and I believe that there are many different ways to budget. There's not one single way. I just want to introduce all of them to you as best as I possibly can. And because this is the course for the budget template and showing you how to use it, I do need to introduce the bucket system because it's very awesome, I think. Now, you can also use the bucket system to track what's in your envelope. So if you decide to do the cash envelope system, basically if you put $30 in here, you're still going to put $30 into the bucket. And then when you spend $30 out of here, you're going to track $30 going out of the bucket. That way you can watch it digitally and in cash, which is awesome. So I want to stress, I don't really care which way you do it. I have a preferred method because I don't care to carry around cash. Is it safe to carry around cash? I'm sure it is. It probably happens that some people get it stolen. It probably happens that some people have their debit cards stolen, but the bank will usually get your money back on those situations. I've actually had a few times where people have come after me and taken my money, and things have worked out great, because I kept it all digitally. So I can only imagine how devastating it would be to misplace an envelope with $100 in it when that's your whole month of food or whatever it might be. I take caution in that. Now, what I wanted to say earlier, though, is that this is a mind game. And there are some budgeters out there that'll tell you that there's only one right way to do it because that's the only way your mind can comprehend that cash is in your possession. And I don't agree with that. I think that it's different for everyone, like I just said. So go out and do what's right for you. This is a mind game. If you believe that you truly have that $128 in your bucket and you and your spouse or whoever's in your household that's using this budget can all agree that that is the finite number, then that's great. But I'll tell you, if I had cash in an envelope and I opened it up because I had just filled up my Mountain Dew and I looked inside and realized I don't have any more Mountain Dew money, I would just draw the cash from another envelope that I'm holding. Except that I don't, because it's a mind game. It's all in your head. You say, this is the envelope. Well, digitally, this is the bucket. You don't overdraw that unless you honestly decide as a group of people using the budget or by yourself that that's what's really more important and you make educated choices to move money around. Now, I don't want to ramble too long because I don't want to make anyone feel like the way they do it is wrong. There is no wrong way. I'm stressing that again. No wrong way. Go out and budget. Get yourself set up. Now that I've introduced you to the bucket system, we're going to start jumping into the actual budget template and how to use it. Like you saw a few examples there, we're going to name some accounts. We're going to create some new months. We're going to do all sorts of things that I'll show you how the template works. And we're basically going to build through that together. So join me in the next video and we will be putting this budget template together. If you're enjoying budgeting, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. I'm loving having all of you budgeteers joining in. This has been a blast for me, and I'm loving making these videos. So leave me a big thumbs up if you're having fun, or if you're bored to tears, but you're learning something, still leave a thumbs up, all right? We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. I'm extremely glad to have you here. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up. For more awesome videos, make sure you are subscribed.